it's now time to get to the big conversation. Education issues have dominated the week. And so this morning, the spotlight is on the emerging issues from the KCSE 2020 results, especially from the perspective of teachers and students as well as schools. The term has begun on a happy note for the teachers who received their promotion letters from the Teachers Service Commission. We are also discussing the safety of students and teachers in schools after this week's reopening. Have the institutions met the requirements of the health guidelines issued by the Ministry of Education and that of Health? Why has such a tiny number of teachers received the COVID-19 vaccination? What's the status of funding for schools during the current term? And we'll also be talking about the upcoming Form 1 selection exercise. We're delighted to welcome for the very first time on this show Kahi Indimuli, the chair of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, who's also the principal of Machaco School. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
And I should say congratulations for beating the crazy Mombasa road traffic.
Thank you. I had to leave at 4:30 a.m. in Machacos to be here.
Yeah. So that's the secret.
Yeah.
Leave at 4:30 if you want to be in town. What time?
For me to be here at exactly 7:55 a.m.
All right. Also, how have you coped with the busy week starting a new school term while also analyzing the results of the 2020 candidates?
Well, first, before I comment on that, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the students and the teachers for the improved performance that we noticed. And at the same time, also congratulate those teachers who have been promoted by the Teachers Service Commission, and appreciate the employer for having promoted these teachers. We would have wished to see a larger number, but the numbers that have been promoted, we appreciate.
And it's got to start somewhere. The process has to start somewhere.
The term began well. A lot of jubilation and celebration in majority of our schools. For many of them have posted at least a positive improvement, however small, ranging from positive 0 point something to positive 1, 2, 3 in some schools. That is very good. I know many people are wondering how come students were away for all this time and then when they come they are performing well. One thing majority of Kenyans do not know is that in about 55 to 60% of our schools normally clear the Form 4 syllabus by end of March to early May. Those that go late mid-June, just before the normal mock time, many schools, 60% of the schools have cleared. There are smaller percentage that drags on. So in this, you'll find that by the time we were closing, schools, about the percentage I've said, had cleared the syllabus. Now the challenge was how do we ensure the students continue engaging with the books? And that is where now every school tried in their own small way. There are those who could not manage because of their infrastructure, their ability to do some online teaching. But many schools, and this is where I want to appreciate my colleague principals for having gone out of their way, tried to ensure that they interact with the students online. Some did Zoom lessons. Others were sending WhatsApp messages to parents with the tasks for students to do. Others were calling. Some schools, even one of our schools that produced the top students, were able even to get some mobile phones to some students at home to be able to follow this lesson. So
let's stay with the examinations and the results that were released a few days ago. And here now is Education CS Professor George Magoha speaking Monday this week.
747,161 candidates sat for the examination compared to 697,222 of the previous year. There were 893 candidates who scored A+, which is 0.1%. This is one of the clearest indicators that the candidates have performed at par, if not better, compared to 2019, despite the negative effects of COVID-19. I assure all the KCSE candidates who will receive their results that they all have a better future. All candidates have a place in our education story. Our government has ensured that every child in our country has a place to pursue a career, and everyone deserves a chance, and that chance shall be given.
What's the general assessment, your general assessment of the 2020 KCSE performance, and what are the significant trends that emerged from these results?
The major trend that we saw is the continued improvement of performance. In 2019, we had a better improvement than 2018. And then 2020, we are seeing also a marked improvement. So what this one tells us that as time moves on, teachers and students are able to put in a little bit more than what they did. For this particular one, the realization of students having stayed home for long gave everybody that energy to push on. The students were able to move on their own. The teachers, when the children came back, were quick to find out how much learning loss has been there and how do they mitigate this. Secondly, we are also noticing the trend in the improvement on the number of the quality grades that we saw. Somebody the other day asked me that does it mean that the A's something is wrong somewhere, that the A's are increasing? But I want to pick that from the theory we have in chemistry. We call it the collision theory in rates of chemical reaction. That talks about if the number of collisions are many, then the probability of many more being successful is high, and therefore the reaction will proceed faster. If the candidature is increasing every year, 741,000 compared to 697,000 the previous year, then chances of more quality grades because of increased number being there are higher, you see. So as you increase more candidates, then you are likely to get more students getting quality grades, because amongst the increased number, there are those who are going to get the quality grades.
And in terms of also of improvement, this year we've seen fewer grade E's than last year.
Yes.
Yeah,
which is something very, very, very significant here, because what we are the exam is telling us is that all grades are valid, and that students can be able to perform if given time and pushed to some level. Okay, so it is gratifying to see that the number of E's are going down, because if you have more E's, then it means these are students that we are not able to place in institutes of higher learning.
But are these genuine A's though? Are these genuine A's?
Why should we doubt them? Because if they were not genuine, then Kenya National Examination Council, as it has done in the past,
because
they would punish.
The reforms that Professor Dr. Matiang'i brought, one of the issues that were raised at that time was that there were so many A's we couldn't believe if they were genuine or not, because there were so many. In some cases, like one of a guest of ours yesterday said, you found a school had more A's than even B's and C's. So is it that the old ways of exam cheating are back, or are the reforms, is it so watertight that the A's that we get now are believable and they are genuine?
The A's that we are getting, I want to believe they are genuine. There could be one or two mischief that was reported, and the Teacher Service Commission and the Ministry of Education and NEC definitely took very decisive steps on it. But you notice that when the reforms are put in place, everybody would adjust. They would adjust to ensure that they are within. For example, when in 2016, 2017,
yes,
when
2017.
those reforms came into place, everybody had to adjust. People in their various schools had also to adjust how do they grade internally. If they were doing their grading at a at a lower pedestal, they raised. For example, it was reported then that there is no moderation, and an A will be an A with the same mark regardless of the subject. So schools went back also and readjusted their internal measurement programs. And I think it is through this and the resilience of the students and the teachers that is seeing the number of A's increase. But if there is any mischief, I know Kenya National Examination Council and the Ministry of Education has ways and means of detecting and taking decisive action on them.
Like the CS said, investigations are still ongoing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So how did your own Machaco school perform during the 2020 exam compared to the class of 2019?
There was an improvement of about 0.9, positive 0.9, because we had 8.6 mean score, 6 something, and now we have 8.7 something. We increased the number of A's, moved from 1 to 3, So I thank God for that.
Right. What was the challenge, would you say, in keeping students and especially candidates engaged during that long period when they were home last year?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is reaching them. And this was across the board in many of our schools. Being a national school, it means that we have all our students across this country. So some were in places where network was okay. Others were in places where they could not be reached. I remember in our school, for example, and this I also got from my colleagues, they would do Zoom lessons, and you would not get 100% of the students present. And then as you move on, you start with maybe 200 students. By the time the lesson is halfway, you have 100. By the time you end, you're ending maybe with 20. Now, what does this one tell us? The major complaint was, Mwalimu, we did not have enough bundles to stay online throughout. So this is a learning lesson as a nation, that as we move forward, ICT is key. And therefore, it is our responsibility as a nation to discuss with the service providers on how can we lower the cost for connectivity, especially when it comes to learning purposes. That's why we are saying there's need for us also to come up with gadgets that are tailored for learning purposes, so that gadget, when I have it, even if I'm away from school and the school is conducting online lessons, I can still access at a cheaper rate than the way it is now. Many complained that they couldn't, though they would start off, but the cost was prohibiting. You see,
Mr. Indimuli, the issues that you've raised and the challenges are some of the reasons why many are struggling to understand how so many schools have recorded improved performance when there was disruption of learning for almost 9 months. In previous years, when there has not been any disruption to learning, if this year they've performed better, it means they performed better in comparison to, say, 2019. So there are cases of maybe teenage pregnancies, early marriages, like you said, connection problems. Not many students could afford data. And also, not many reported back to school because some had already found other means, to make money. So how do you then, how can we reconcile these two things? The disruption and the improved performance?
Now, I think I started off earlier by saying many times, the Form 4 syllabus in a majority of our schools are cleared by end of March. By the end of first term, a number, around 60%, I would put it, have cleared syllabus. Some will move to June, and very few will move to third term. So you find that by March, when the schools were closing, we closed when we were remaining with about 2 weeks to the official closing. So by that time, students were actually getting into examination mood, the normal end-term exams. And for the Form 4s, the syllabus was virtually covered. So what remained was, how do we sustain interaction? The students to remain glued to their books as they would be when they are in school. That was the challenge. So the few that the teachers were able to get were able to continue interacting. So that when the time they were reporting, the challenge was, where do we start? How do we measure the learning loss? So because of that and the resilience of our teachers, they were able to determine where to begin and then move on with the candidate class. Remember, at the time we were reopening, we only reopened with the candidate class.
Yes.
And the teachers were full house, you see. So we had enough personnel to be able to manage these candidates in a school.
So as heads of schools, what were some of the big issues you had to confront with when the first batch of students reported back to school in October last year?
The biggest challenge is maintenance of the containment measures. Making students adhere to the rules. Because remember, these students came from out there. They were not putting on masks. They were not washing their hands regularly. But here they come to school, and we are saying masks on throughout. Regularly wash your hands. Of course, social distance between students, that it's not possible. And even between teacher and students, it's not possible. So the two major issues was wearing of masks and regular washing of hands. This was a big challenge because the students would only wait to see when they see the teacher, they put on. When the teacher is not there,
they've seen their parents wearing their masks when they see the police.
Yes, they have seen that. So, our school is just a reflection of what goes on in the society. If we cannot maintain the same out there, then it becomes very difficult to institute that. And that's why you've seen me appealing all the time to parents that ensure the students, your children, are following the containment measures even at home. So that when they come to school and the schools are enforcing, the students do not see it as a punishment. And you see, when you are enforcing something which the students feel is a punishment, the natural way is to resist. Yeah. In the process of resisting, the teachers, being our nature, we will want to punish. When you punish, it leads to something else.
Yes.
So it must start from home. Even now, as we were preparing for them to reopen, we were still appealing. Carry masks. Let the children practice it while at home, so that when it comes to school, it is just a normal thing.
You've talked extensively about online lessons and how those helped in preparing, especially the candidates. Is the future of learning going to be based on a mixed model that combines in-person learning and virtual classes?
In future, yes, we need to go there. We must prepare that at any one time we have a shock like the one we've had. We do not close schools and at the same time close learning. We can close schools, but we should open learning to continue. And for us to ensure we open learning to continue is through ICT. So the future should be a mixed blend. If you look at the new curriculum, you'll find an emphasis on ICT as a mode of learning and even a mode of instruction. So that is where the future is going. Yeah.
Now, the 2020 candidates transition to university, let's talk about that, and other tertiary institutions. What role do schools play in assisting these children and their parents to make suitable career choices?
One, by the time these students make their subject choices somewhere at the end of Form 2 as they enter Form 3. They base their choices on the envisioned career. And that is why schools have, within the guidance and counseling, they have the career guidance teacher. And out there, we also have organizations that train teachers on career guidance. So when you have a vibrant, robust career guidance department, then the students are able to be given proper guidance based on their ability in the subjects that they would wish to do. I know parents would want to at times influence their children on which career pathway to go. But at times they do so by making mistakes, because you may be pushing a child to a particular career, but his or her ability in the subjects that are core for that career may not be possible. So it is always good to first give an opportunity to the child. Let the child decide, this is the career path I want to take. And then from the child's decision, you can now sit down, advise this child whether it is correct, what he or she needs to do, and then maybe an input also from the parents. But let the child decide. Secondly, we should not only imagine that the quality education that will guarantee job opportunities is through universities. We have graduates who have so far not been employed. Our TVET institutions are very key. These provide training on hands-on activities, hands-on jobs. And the government has really invested a lot in the TVET. They have the teachers, they have the equipment for training, they have the space. Yeah, they have the space. But I think as schools, we need to also change our narrative, not only insisting that university is the place to be. There is a path that can also lead you to the university. That's why in the new curriculum, we have also career guidance as a core area in that curriculum.
I'm actually coming to the new curriculum now, because Education CS Professor Magoha gave the timetable for the first examination under the competency-based curriculum in 2021.
As you are aware, His Excellency the President has sworn in a permanent secretary specifically to midwife the competency-based curriculum changes, the CBC, which basically means that this will be done without any problem. We are therefore about to come face to face with the historic examination system next year, which means that we must start preparing for the 5 examinations. I therefore wish to urge all our stakeholders, and especially those in the union, to very kindly work with us as they have done so in the past, and the multi-agency team on the examination to tighten their belt and to prepare to confront the 5 impending examinations.
So the country now has a substantive principal secretary, Professor Fatuma Chege, in charge of the curriculum reforms. Why are these changes so crucial, and what do they mean for the country's education system at this point in time? One, we have complained a lot that our education system is purely examination oriented, and that when the results are not good, the child is almost rendered, I'm looking for the appropriate term, but we condemn that child without looking at other abilities the children have, right? So the new curriculum sought to look at, other than just the known subjects that we teach, what else does this child do that can also enhance his or her future? And that is why you find we are now introducing the various pathways after junior secondary, the talent pathway, the STEM pathway, and the rest. So they are key because every child will now be taken along. Nobody will be left by the sideline because
he or she did not get a grade to take him or her to institutes of higher learning. He or she may have been a very good enthusiast in drama, in music. How do we carry that one along? That's what the new syllabus is doing. The introduction of the State Department to that, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate my chair at the task force, Professor Fatuma Chege, for that appointment, is just to ensure that we don't lose the focus, because the task force she chaired was an implementation task force. And therefore, she fully understands really what did the task force want to be done in ensuring this goes. In addition to the vision the ministry had through that curriculum, which Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development midwifed.
Mr. Indimuli, not many people, myself included, I must say, really understand how this new academic calendar is running. So could you please give us clarity on the timetable towards synchronizing the calendar after the disruption last year?
Thank you. One, we needed to understand that the disruption interrupted our academic calendar. Many people have argued that let's maintain it. But remember, we are in a community, the East African community. We have children in Kenya who also continue for A-level classes in our neighboring countries. And therefore, it is important that we do not disrupt this for a very long time. It means if we change, then our students will be staying out for almost a year before they proceed to Form 5. So that was very key in looking at how do we deal with this. Secondly, the basic education has an age limit, Yeah. So continued staying at home for too long, we will have students who have surpassed the age required for that. Therefore, it would mean having also to change the laws that govern basic education. It's just on the bottom line. There are many other factors that were to be considered.
So when exactly will the...
we are beginning term 3. Term 3 for children in grade 1 to 3, pupils in standard 5, 6, and 7. Term 3, students in Form 1 up to Form 3. Okay, that is why you find children in grade 4, which is almost a transition to move to grade 5, because those are taking a new curriculum. They are not in the 844 curriculum, are still at home. So that we do the third term. Then after finishing the third term, we together start term 1 of the new year. That is when now Form 1s will transition to Form 2, Form 3 will be transitioning to Form 4.
And when will this be?
In July?
Okay.
In July. In July. Then we will run after that for about 11 weeks, then finish term 1, have a week's break like that until we sit the current Form 3 sits their exams in March. At that time, again, we will transition. All right. The Form 2s are expected to sit their exams in December of next year. So next year we shall be having 2 examination classes. So
for clarity,
yes.
Form 4 exam, KCSE is going to be done in March next year, but you said there are going to be 2.
There are going to be 2.
In March?
In March next year we are doing the current Form 3 class, which is doing term 3.
Yes.
We'll be sitting their Form 4 exams somewhere in March. Yeah. And the current Form 2 will be doing their Form 4 exams in December of next
Same year.
Same year. So the Form 3s will be doing 2021. Is it? We are in 2021.
Yes.
They are supposed to have been 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
In March.
In March.
And the Form 2s will be doing their Form 4
exams in December.
December of 2022.
Yes.
Okay.
So that January 2023 we shall have harmonized to begin again
In
somewhere
January.
around January 15th,
Okay.
thereabout. I'm sorry I didn't carry those dates with me. Thereabout, we will begin and now harmonize and continue.
This is the big conversation on KBC English Service, and this morning we are still on the education news, because this has dominated the conversation this week after the release of KCSE exams on Monday by Professor George Magoha. There's so much we're talking about this morning, the emerging issues from those results. The term has begun on a happy note for the teachers who received the promotion letters from the Teacher Service Commission, and we're also discussing the safety of students and teachers in schools after this week's reopening. And my guest in studio this morning is Kahi Indimuli, the chair of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. And we're taking your questions on Facebook, KBC English Service, and on Twitter at KBC English. You can also text us on 20154. Start with the word English. We are back in just a moment.
The Breakfast Show 2021.
Welcome back to the big conversation, and this morning our focus is on emerging issues after the release of the KCSE 2020 results, especially from the perspective of teachers and schools. And my guest this morning is Kahi Indimuli, the chair of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. Now, just before the break, of course, we're talking about how to harmonize the school calendar and when exactly the next lot of Form 4 candidates will sit their exam. So as you heard from Mr. Indimuli, the current Form 3 class will sit their 2021 KCSE exam in March next year, that's 2022, and the current Form 2 students will sit their 2022 KCSE exam in December of 2022. So this term, Mr. Indimuli, is beginning on a happy note for more than 16,000 teachers who have been promoted after interviews by the TSC. This must be a great morale for the teachers.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I want to congratulate all the teachers who have been promoted to the various cadres in the teaching profession, and at the same time appreciate what the employer has done. I know the teachers would have wished to be many. Some have been left out, and they may be feeling not happy, but we've started somewhere. Any challenge that may have been there, as usual, we as a Heads Association, we always have a forum in which we can address with the Teacher Service Commission.
Akelo Misori of the Teachers Union, Kupet, says these promotions are only the beginning because there are teachers who have stagnated in the same job group for more than 10 years. How significant is the problem of stagnation, and how does that affect the career progression of teachers?
There has been stagnation. And this stagnation, of course, is brought about from what we refer to as the collective bargaining agreement that was signed, and because of that, both the unions and the employer, I think, still need to go further on the table and discuss. And this is an area I would want to leave to my friends Akelo Misori and our employer plus Sosion and their team to continue discussing and negotiating.
I know there are exceptional cases of teachers who went above the call of duty to go and administer exams in time. For instance, Sosian High School Principal Magdalene Kimani, who was saluted by Teacher Service Commission CEO Dr. Nancy Macharia for walking 20 kilometers to deliver examination papers, is one such individual.
I want to say that, as always, the TSC will reward those teachers that NEC will give names who have performed exemplary well and improved in their performance. We shall recognize them.
What is the ideal recognition for teachers who work beyond the call of duty, like the principal who worked daily to deliver examination papers?
The ideal recognition, I may not be able to prescribe, but any kind of recognition, somebody would be happy if it has a financial reward to it.
Yes.
Teachers will be happier if that recognition maybe comes with an upgrading. But as I said, there is that collective bargaining agreement that stipulates how the how the promotions are done. But recognition, even by the head of state, to a teacher is good. I know TSC will do some recognition letter, appreciation letter. I don't know what else they have the capacity. I don't know what else they can do, but they can also recommend this teacher to the awards committee at national level, so that the teacher is maybe given some recognition, like head of state commendation,
right?
Yeah, like that.
Let's now shift attention to COVID-19 vaccination for teachers as schools reopen. First, listen to these statistics from Nancy Macharia and CS Magoha.
I am aware that about half of you teachers have been vaccinated. When vaccine comes, we shall ensure that all of you who voluntarily accept to be vaccinated shall be vaccinated possibly by the end of next month.
As of Sunday, the 8th, we had 494 teachers vaccinated, constituting 48.9 female and 51% male. So far, we have provided full medical insurance cover for COVID-19 related ailments.
Those are statistics from the Teacher Service Commission. What has been the uptake of vaccination among teachers generally across the country?
I would say initially, when it was stated that those to be vaccinated were those from 58 years and above, the age limit was there. So those were the first people to be vaccinated. Of course, as we know, there were negative sentiments about this, and teachers being part and parcel of the society, definitely there are those who went with those rumors and were a little bit slow. But with time, when they started seeing teachers going, leadership like us.
Have you created awareness?
Yes, we have. I took my job in Machacos. The CEO led the team at the TSC headquarters where many of us attended. This increased the uptake. And then this is going to increase because if you read through the CEO's remarks, she mentioned that the government, the president, has allowed all teachers, regardless of age, to be vaccinated. And this, I also want to thank government and to thank the Teacher Service Commission for the negotiation. They must have entered into a negotiation on this so that all teachers are vaccinated. And therefore, I want to encourage all our teachers out there to get vaccinated, because we interact a lot with the children. We interact a lot with the general public as they come to schools for services and consultation. So we need to be safe.
Speaking of which, I know that we have lost teachers to COVID-19, just like other professions and professionals. How devastating has the pandemic been to teachers' health and welfare, and what support has been offered to them? Losing even one teacher for this country, it's a big blow, given that our numbers are still not enough. You've seen us complain or requesting more employment. So as we say, pole to the families of those who lost, I think the blow is big. But moving forward, it would be important that the teachers take up this vaccination as quickly as possible, because the children we interact with come from out there. When they fall sick with them, they are quick to recover, or they may not notice. But the teachers, because of our advanced age, and the teaching profession, the teaching force at the moment in Kenya is an aging force. So we have a majority who are that advanced age.
So I would still want to say, let us get vaccinated.
I read
I've left out something. I seem to have missed part of the question.
It's fine. You answered the question. I read some comments, though, that you made about the safe resumption of co-curricular activities, such as sports, drama, music, that were put on hold due to the pandemic. Are you engaging the Ministry of Education and that of Health on the issue? And what is the progress?
Yes, we are engaging, and I am aware that the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health are at the moment coming up with protocols for resumption of these activities. I have been invited for a meeting next week that will be discussing on the resumption of co-curricular activities in our schools. So we are moving forward because really we cannot lock these students. The amount of energy these boys and girls have cannot be bottled. They will explode. So we must give them something to ventilate. We can begin with less contact activities, drama, music festivals, the reduced number. For contact activities, we can do a kind of indoor activities. If it is football between two schools, we'll limit the number of students that are coming in and lock out our gates to any other external spectators that may wish to come. Remember, even in our country, there is the resumption of our Premier League and other leagues that are going on. And these teams also tap their talent from students in schools.
Right.
So if we don't expose these students there, these clubs in all our games, be it athletics, be it volleyball, basketball, they will not see them. And it is difficult once these students leave the school to really find their route into these clubs. They identify them at school level.
Finally, even as schools reopen, the big concern among head teachers is funding and other logistics. The CS says money for COVID-19 management and third term has already been released to the teachers and schools' accounts.
In terms of empowering the schools to get back to work, you remember we were supposed to give 15 billion last term, but we gave only 7.5. You will find that there is money already in your accounts because we have wired 7.5 billion to the secondary schools to ensure that you get COVID ready by Monday. Further, we have requested the third term 13 billion for secondary schools and 2.8 billion for primary schools, and I think this money should be available towards the end of next week. So we don't want to hear any excuse that you have not been empowered to run the school.
Since the schools reopened on Monday, could you confirm if school heads have received the funds?
Yes, what I would like to say first, the 50% in first tranche was given in two batches. First, we got the 12.5, and then, is it 50%? Yeah, the 25%. Then the remaining came in two batches. The first 12 just before we started the national exams, and then, as the minister says, they released the other 12-point-something% of the funding just last week before we opened. Yeah, what we are waiting is this is the week the minister said that they will be releasing the 13 billion meant for third term. So the week is not over. I think it is ending on Friday. I think by Monday I will be knocking at his door if the money will not have been
But he said he doesn't want to hear any excuse that you've not been facilitated.
If the money will not be there, I will definitely knock at his door and tell him, sir, the money has not come.
Right.
So if you hear noise, it is true it has not come.
Okay.
But if the money is there, I can assure you, we can't make noise. Why should we make noise when the money is there? Yeah.
And finally, I know you said finally, but finally, what is the timetable for Form 1 selection and reporting to their new schools?
The timetable is not yet out. That's something the ministry, the Directorate of Secondary Education, I want to believe, are working on now. Just from my consultation we expect, I think this had been communicated also by the minister, that maybe the selection should be done by 28th of this month. But I would want to leave it at that point because we are yet to receive concrete instructions on that. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure something is being done. Remember, now selection is computerized. So I'm sure there is now the process of feeding in information, right, and the rest. Mm-hmm. And by 28th, we should know, so that the parents have the month of June to prepare, mm-hmm, and July the students come to school. The danger was doing it also too early, mm-hmm, would put the principals in a lot of pressure. Right. Because every year, whenever there is a change in transition, parents never accept where their children have been taken to school. So they would want to look for better schools, in quotes, according to them. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Indimuli, for coming to the show. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. We've talked to you on phone. Yeah. It's the first time you've come to our studios. Yes. Kahi Indimuli, the chair of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, and he's been talking to us about emerging issues from the KCSE 2020 results, especially from the perspective of teachers and schools, and also the safety of students and teachers in schools after this week's reopening, and whether the institutions have met the requirements of the health guidelines issued by the Ministries of Education as well as Health. A podcast of this conversation will be available on www.kbc.co.ke. Thanks for your participation on the big conversation.
The Breakfast Show 2021. The Breakfast Show 2021.